Nico demands that he tells him. Oh, wait, I want to make a cool, sick joke. Anyway, this is why I come to the show. Oh, what's good, New Zealand? How we Christchurch, New Zealand, what is good? Make some noise, everybody. Oh, it is a delight to be here down under. In the other down under, I was previously in Australia. Do you guys hate Australia? Is there a rivalry? Is that a thing? Yeah, it feels like one of those, it feels like you two are brothers or siblings where it's like, yeah, we don't like each other, but nobody else can make fun of them because they're my brother. Okay, cool. Just been here in Christchurch for a couple of days. I've had all of my meals at Riverside Market. I don't think I'm ever going to leave. It's great. They have everything you need. I'm very excited to be here. Everyone has been such a delight. Everyone so far in this entire country is excessively nice, which is very cool. But the person who's going to be joining me on stage today is someone who is infinitely more excited to be here than me. And I'm already very excited. But Kelly is the most obsessive Lord of the Rings fan that I know. So to be here is very special. So let's not waste any more time. Please give a warm welcome to our guest for this episode. It's Kelly Beckman Schubert. Kelly, come to the stage. Oh, hello. What an entrance.
I've been planning that since we got here.
How's it going?
Good. There you go.
Thank you. Great. While you tell them how you're enjoying it, I'll fix my hair.
Oh, we're loving it here. We've been here. We've only been in New Zealand for like 2 days, and we spent a lot of that time, unfortunately for me, working. But I'm officially on PTO now and living it up in New Zealand. We're very excited.
And I'm on the clock because this is my job. But it's been a delight. We spent a good chunk of today planning the rest of our New Zealand travels, which is going to be very fun and very hiking based. And we've already booked an additional Lord of the Rings tour in addition to the one we already had booked. So
look, when I'm in charge, when I'm the one in charge of the planning, I'm going to find it. So
it is funny when we do like particular hikes and then I'm looking at them on Google Maps and then you zoom in a little bit and then something on Google Maps is like, oh, this is the Isengard Lookout Tower. It's like, is that why? But when Kelly sends me the link, it's like, here's this cool trailhead not called Lord of the Rings. Over like, wait a second. Anyway, we're not here to discuss Lord of the Rings. We're here to discuss. We are not here to discuss Lord of the Rings. We are here to discuss Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And we are specifically going to be covering Chapter 5 of Book 4, Battle of the Labyrinth. Things are getting intense because now we're inside the titular labyrinth. I've now asked you, I think, every introductory question I can think of since you've been the guest for the past like 6 live shows / episodes. So,
what's a good introductory question
have
this
you
time?
ever done a corn maze or anything like a labyrinth? Are you a big maze person?
You don't know how many times I tried to book a maze on this trip.
Really?
Yeah, there've been a couple. There was one in Australia that I tried to get us to go to. We ran out of time. There's one here that I was going to try and get us to go to, but I think we're going to run out of time. I keep trying to build mazes into our trip. I've been to one before.
Okay. Did you complete the maze?
The hedges were at like knee height, so it was a little easy. But it was actually larger than expected, so it took us a while to get through, even though we could see the way there. It like took us a while.
Where was this? What part of town was this in?
This was in like a gardens outside of like some chateau in France. I don't think it was meant to be a hedge maze like for people like me. I think it was meant to be like a scenic garden, but there was like a hedge maze in somebody's garden.
I think you might have got, maybe it's a common staple at French chateaus, but when I lived in Paris, I also went to one of those, and they had a little like dinky maze.
Was it in the Loire Valley?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that was the same one that I went to.
Oh, look at us! We did the same maze, just at different times. I mean, yeah, but it's like very easy.
Yeah,
it's like someone's backyard. Like it is not challenging at all. And I'm pretty sure I made, because Vine was alive at the time, I'm pretty sure I made a goofy Cedric Diggory themed Vine while I was going through the maze. But that's the second act of the show, so we gotta not worry about Harry Potter stuff. For now, Percy Jackson. We are here. It is Chapter 5, which is called Nico Buys Happy Meals for the Dead. Now, I always try to guess what happens with these chapter titles. This one threw me for a loop. I had no idea what this could be. Here was my guess, and I mean, I could have been more wrong. Let's say that. I said, quote, I'm going to guess we get another collect call iris message because I doubt they get to the underworld in this chapter. Either that or a dream. As far as the Happy Meals, maybe Nico like courts spirits with meals and gifts, question mark? So like when I wrote that, I was like, this can't be right at all. And in retrospect, not the worst. Not the worst.
Not that far off.
No,
we'll
not
see.
that far off. Were you a big Happy Meal fiend back in the day?
Oh, yeah. We loved Happy Meals. Were Happy Meals here, too? I imagine.
Do you call them like a fun, different name, though? Okay, they're just Happy Meals.
Happy
Do you
Meals.
guys call McDonald's Maccas, or is that just Australia?
Macca's.
Maccas as well? Okay, cool.
Yeah. When they, at least in the US, when we were little, they had the tiny versions of the Beanie Babies that came as the toy.
Yeah.
That was our biggest Happy Meal era because we had to collect all of the tiny Beanie Babies.
Of course.
In fact, I found an email, or my mom found an email from like 1997 or something, where I had used her email to email my grandparents, begging them to go to McDonald's and get us more tiny Beanie Babies.
It's a very good email that I did
was
convince
very
you to
good.
turn into a tweet at one point. So maybe in intermission we can find it and you can verbatim read your tweet. But I'm pretty sure it was like, Grandma, urgent, please get the tiny beanies. And there were cute little typos.
Yep.
Love Kelly at, soccergirl13 at AOL.com or whatever. So narrator Percy begins this chapter by saying, quote, at least I got a good night's sleep before the quest, right? Wrong, because as you will recall, we've left our heroes where they've decided they're going to go on the quest. They've decided that all 4 of our friends are going on the quest, which is a scary thing to not have the official normal 3. So,
But we get the full team together.
we do get the full team
which
together.
we've kind of been waiting for.
We have been waiting for that. I'm very excited. So, of course, by narrator Percy saying he didn't get a good night's sleep, that can only mean one thing, dream. And that can only mean one thing, scary stuff is about to happen. So Percy is in the stateroom of the Princess Andromeda, and Luke kneels on a Persian rug before the golden Kronos sarcophagus. And Luke is wearing a white chiton and a himation, which is a cape. Thank no one's Greek in the crowd. But he's wearing that. His hair looks white in the moonlight, and Percy says that he kind of looks like a minor god with this fancy sort of getup. And he honestly looks too healthy given that when we last saw Luke, he fell off of a mountain. So he looks a little healthy for what Percy would anticipate. Now, Luke then says, quote, our spies report success, my lord. Camp Half-Blood is sending a quest, as you predicted. Our side of the bargain is almost complete. And I was very worried here because I want to know who are the spies. And is everything a trap? Should we cancel the quest? I was very nervous for our friends.
Who do you think the spies are?
We'll have to see as it kind of continues in the chapter. But as I said in a previous episode, I don't feel like I can trust Juniper. We just met her. I don't know what she's doing here. She's all like weird with Grover. I don't know. The 2 people jumping out to me right now are Juniper and Quintus. And in this chapter, they go a little too heavy to be like, I don't know if we should trust Quintus, guys. And that just feels like they're pushing that narrative a bit too hard. And I've been burned before. But also, when I did do the Ludo Bagman thing, this is exactly what it was. So we'll have to see. So Kronos, in response to Luke, says, quote, excellent. Once we have the means to navigate, I will lead the vanguard through myself. And I was worried that he might come back in this book. It's been hinted at since book 2 that he's coming back, even book 1, really. I mean, it's the 4th out of 5 in the main series, so it's not impossible that he would come back, but it's just always one of those daunting things of like, oh, right, that might happen. So Luke cautions that it may be too soon for Kronos to return, and he suggests that Krios or Hyperion lead it instead. Now, this brings up 2 points. 1, I got to talk to Dr. Moya because I have no idea what Krios or Hyperion do. But 2, I do find it funny that the books are published by Disney Hyperion. And I feel like that wasn't always the case. I don't know the exact timeline, but I feel like it was under one publishing company, and then I think Disney bought it, but I'm not exactly sure when that happened. But I want to know the timeline of, was Hyperion in the story before Hyperion came in? Or did they like buy the rights to the books and were like, hello, Uncle Rick, if you could find a way to sneak our name in. I don't think that's the case, though.
Like a really obvious ad in some movie or TV show. Like, we're going to pay for this with our Visa.
Okay, you're saying that because you did just watch the Zac Efron Down to Earth thing. He has a season about it where he goes to Australia. And it's got one of those like subtle product placement things. But at one point, they're like on a pontoon doing Great Barrier Reef stuff. And then for some reason, even though this is a TV show that they are clearly filming, one of the guys on the trip has to buy something from the store on the pontoon.
Souvenirs. Yeah, he goes to buy some souvenirs and he just like takes out his Visa and is like,
but he very much, the camera's behind him, so he's just like, tap to pay. And it doesn't even look like a real credit card because Visa is way bigger than it should be on the card. It's like, Visa! It's quite ridiculous.
Or like when they zoom in on like the car symbol on the front before they zoom out to the rest of the car. That's a classic too.
Yeah. The big tell that you can always see as way too obvious is when someone uses Bing Maps in a movie. No way. We get it. Microsoft is sponsoring the movie. But I don't know a single person that would be like, hey, let's Bing this real quick. Good idea, Chad. Ridiculous. So Kronos insists that he will do it. And he says that one more heart will join their cause. And I just wrote, please not Nico, please not Nico, please not Nico. And that will be enough. And soon, Kronos says that he will finally rise from Tartarus. Luke is nervous about the form, in quotes, or at least I have it here, the form. Kronos asks Luke to show him his sword, and then he refers to Luke by first and last name, so Luke Castellan, and I knew that was his last name, but I don't know if that was ever actually said in the book, because Percy, as the narrator, says that he realizes this is the first time he has heard Luke's last name. And I think I only knew it because of tweets about like the casting of the TV show and stuff. I don't know if Castellan or whatever translates to something or if it's a meaningful last name. The only thing I do know about the last name Castellan is that there's a baseball player named Nick Castellanos. Do you guys even know about baseball? Is that a thing down here? Do you guys play? Not at all? Okay, cool. So it's this sport like cricket, right? But there's a baseball player named Nick Castellanos who has this unfortunate / fortunate for him in terms of baseball thing where he hits home runs during really awkwardly dramatic times. So there was one time when he was playing for the Cincinnati Reds where earlier in that game, a baseball broadcaster, they had his microphone on and he didn't know it and he made a homophobic slur on microphone before the game started. And then he had to apologize for it later in the game. While this guy is mid-apology, Nick Castellanos hits a home run. So this guy is saying this whole thing about like, I pride myself as a man of faith, which is the worst excuse ever, always. This is not who I am, blah, blah, blah. And there goes one deep into left field, Nick. Like, it's so just Google Nick Castellanos deep to left field. It will show up. It's very, very funny.
I pride myself and think of myself as a man of faith. As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be a home run. And so that'll make it a 4-0 ball game.
But then this trend continued where later in the season, they were doing on the broadcast some sort of memorial thing to a war veteran who had passed away recently. And while they're doing that on the broadcast, he hits a home run.
Oh, my gosh.
That's a great life. 96 years. And Pat, just like his dad, went to KU. He also went to Bishop Ward High School. There's a drive into deep left center field, and there's never a great time to eulogize someone during the broadcast.
And then there was something where, some sort of like military thing happened overseas where they had some attack and he hit a home run earlier that day. It's truly wild. One of the most ridiculous rabbit holes that you can go down is just like important life events on days where Nick Castellanos hit home runs. And it's truly, truly, truly wild. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Luke displays his poorly named sword, as Kronos asked him to do. And Kronos says that this sword, Backbiter, is proof of Luke's oath when he pledged loyalty to him. And Kronos says that Luke wanted power, and he gave it to him. He says that Luke will soon rule the world of gods and mortals. And Kronos asks if he still wants that, and if he still wants to see Olympus destroyed. And Luke confirms that he does want that. And Kronos says that he should then ready the strike force. And as soon as the bargain is done, they shall move forward. My thoughts, what's the strike force? What's the bargain? What's happening here?
So many ominous words used.
So many scary words. Kronos says first they will attack Camp Half-Blood, then they will attack Olympus. And I'm trying to think here at this point when I was reading, what's the bargain? And it feels like this could be one of those hero trade this for that kind of things, but I'm not exactly sure what this could be. And some of our characters wonder what it could be later. So I don't know what it is, but I just know it's going to be important. So much from you.
I can't say it's super important. They're like, oh, no, ignore that. It's okay.
I feel like this does always happen in chapter 5 of Percy Jackson books. I've noticed that at least around that ballpark, we have the chapters where my guest literally will just say, for half of the episode.
The very plot, but ominous plot chapter. Yeah.
Sure. Very much the seeds are planted and you know what plants they grow into. It's like when you play Stardew Valley and you get mixed seeds and you just put them down and you don't know what they're going to grow into until later, but you know what all plants they will turn into.
I do.
So there's a knock on the stateroom door and the coffin light dims and Luke sheaths his sword and he straightens up his clothes and he welcomes in whoever knocked. 2 Dracani enter with Kelly with an eye, not you, Kelly with an eye between them. She's our cheerleading friend with the mismatched legs. She is in a red dress and she tries to sweet talk Luke, but he's not having it. And he asks, what's up? She says, oh, you used to be more fun. And he said that things changed when he saw what she did to a boy in Seattle. And as someone whose heart is still partially in Seattle since I lived there for a couple of years, I feel bad for whatever boy this was.
I know, right?
I don't know what happened. But in response to this, Kelly with an eye says, oh, he meant nothing to me, just a snack, really. You know my heart belongs to you, Luke. So very flirtatious and I don't know. I don't try to agree with Luke on a lot of things, but I feel like his head is in the right space with Kelly with an eye. Luke tells her to basically report what you're here to tell me or beat it. And she says that the advance team, another intense word, the advance team is ready and they can leave. But then before she continues, she stops short and then she frowns. Luke asks her, what's up? And she kind of looks around a little bit and says that she can feel a presence. And then she stares right at Dream Percy. And then her face changes to that of a hag. And she goes full fang and launches at Percy. And that causes him to wake up. So this is the first time we see this. I think Kronos in book 1 at least had times where he could tell Percy was in on the dream, but this is the first time someone else has done it. I wonder if it has to do with her empusai nature, but it's interesting.
She said something before she pointed out Percy. She said to Luke, your detection skills are lessening. Do you not feel that there's a presence? And Luke is like, what? And then she looks around and sees Percy. So I guess anyone can do it?
Yeah, maybe certain people have more attuned skills.
Right, or it's something you learn maybe, and maybe it's something that monsters are better at.
Yeah.
I don't know. But she did point out that Luke was dropping the ball by not noticing.
Right, and it could be a thing that comes with age because Kelly had said, I don't remember if it was Kelly or Tammy, one of the Empusai whose name ends with an I and is a cheerleader, one of the two of them said that they hadn't been defeated in 1,000 years. And then Percy had the great comeback where he said, well, you're overdue. So maybe it is an age thing because Kronos is as old as time and Kelly's very old as well.
Yeah, but Luke is young.
Right, which is exactly what I'm saying. That's why he's not as skilled in the, someone's watching me via dream situation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll have to see. It's a good thought, though. So Percy wakes up. Tyson is still asleep, and Percy considers waking up Annabeth to tell her about the dream, but he decides against it. He then sees that the fountain is glowing, but there's no request for payment this time, like the last time we had our collect call, iris message type situation. Very important question. What was your AIM screen name? Or were you, you weren't an MSN messenger person, were you?
No. I think I was Pink Lemonade 13 or something like that. I wanted something that I didn't want to be I don't know. I thought really hard about what it would be. I think that was also my email address was pinklemonade@consolidated.net. And then it was I was PinkLemonKelly because they didn't have pink lemonades. I was PinkLemonKelly. I don't know why.
I like PinkLemonKelly. I had first MJS Dude, which yes, is my initials followed by Dude. And then when I went into 8th grade and decided I was too cool for MJS Dude, I tried to get Schubes. Schubes was taken. I tried to get Schubes 17. And Schubes 17 was taken, which is the first time that's ever happened to me ever. Schubes gets taken quite often, but Schubes 17 was somehow taken. So I had to have Schubes 1717. And then that was my AOL account and my AIM Instant Messenger account.
I've often wondered why you were Schubes 1717 at AOL.
Because someone took Schubes 17 at AOL, which is wild. So strange to me. I've never had to do anything else to get that anywhere.
Wow.
Which, I don't know.
I guess AOL had been around for a lot longer when you jumped on that train than as opposed to other social medias.
Yeah, I know, but specifically Schubes 17, I don't know, man. Whack to me. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So he doesn't end up telling Annabeth. The fountain is glowing. There's no request for payment. Percy then walks up to the fountain and says, "You're trying to tell me something." He says it to the fountain, gets no response. So instead, he then says, "All right, show me Nico D'Angelo." And I like this move. I think this is good. He's just kind of rolling with the fountain-based punches. But before Percy can even insert a coin, it just shows him Nico. So he doesn't have to insert a drachma this time, which is nice. Narrator Percy notes that it feels like another force besides Iris is controlling it. So I'm thinking, all right, someone clearly is going to be revealed as the person that's been making these messages happen.
I'm going to this because I don't remember.
You don't even have to admit to that. You can just keep going, and people listen to be like, wow, Kelly's so good at being a guest.
I don't remember how this one ends, but yes.
My two thoughts here were, if we're going by the water, it could be Poseidon, but it feels like Poseidon might let him know. We have Poseidon not necessarily show all his cards all the time, but it feels like he might, say something to Percy because he's given him very helpful 4-word letters in the past. So maybe there would be something, but no, wasn't it a 2-word letter? Didn't it just say like, be ready or get prepared or whatever? But the other one I would think is that it could be Hades, because I have this harebrained scheme building in my head that Hades is going to become a secret good guy in the story, and he's doing little stuff. So Hades could be trying to send messages so that Percy can check up on Nico. So that's the one I feel better about. But this is all predicated on Hades actually being a secret good guy. But the more stuff we learn about Hades, like weirdly, he seems like he might be, because with Nico and Bianca, he didn't actually break the vow, and maybe he was keeping them safe so that they would turn past the age, so that they wouldn't be part of the prophecy. Like, it could be really cool. But also I could just look very silly right now or sound very silly if you're listening to the podcast after the fact.
I legitimately don't remember, but I don't want to throw out any other suggestions in case it's my subconscious remembering what it is.
Yes, don't do that, because then someone will be like, no, she ruined it. Yeah, better safe than spoiler, I always say. So Nico appears. He is no longer in the underworld, though. Instead, he's in a graveyard at night with willow trees all around him. And this spooky thing made me think of something that happened when we were in Australia. We did a Great Barrier Reef thing, and we took a small little boat over to this island where we got to see turtles laying their eggs. And it was so cool. We were with this turtle specialist who helped us to make sure that we were crawling on the ground and keeping our distance and making sure we weren't disrupting anything. He had red light flashlights. It was awesome. But when we were waiting for more of the people to come across in the little boat that sat 3 people, 4 people max, we walked through these trees. I forget the name of the trees, and I forget the name of the birds.
The birds were those the shearwaters?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the birds are shearwaters. Do you guys have those down here? Okay. They're these birds that the sound that they make, and I put this at the end of an episode of The News Olympian, so if you listen to the ASMR Mike segment, you will have heard this. But there are these birds that make this groaning noise that legitimately sounds like people either imitating ghosts or imitating the wind, where, no joke, these birds sound like, and what it is these birds burrow underground to sleep for the night, but they do it in pairs with their mates, so they call out to whoever their mate is. So them going, is them basically being like, Rebecca! Rebecca! So they make this noise, but there's loads of these birds. So we're in this forest, and you just hear all around you, and I imagine that going on here. Now, when you think that's scary enough, it gets scarier because the trees in this forest, I forget the name of the tree. Do you have something to add?
So the other thing about the shearwaters, though, that I thought was super interesting was they spend the majority of their life flying, and they don't know how to walk. They're really bad at walking. So they just plop anywhere. And that's why they're yelling for so long, because it takes the other one long enough to like scoot over to them because they can't walk very well. So we were like walking down the path and the guy like turns on his red light and there's one just like in the middle of the path. He's going, ooh.
But then the trees here, I forget the official name of the tree, but I do remember the name that we gave the tree, which was murder trees.
Murder trees.
Because the way that these trees work is they have this sap that they emit out of their branches and stuff, or the leaves, and it gets caught in these birds' wings so that they fall down and then they die, and then their bird carcasses fertilize the tree. So it's like the scariest, weirdest circle of life situation.
Yeah.
So we're in the murder tree forest with the birds going, and it's pitch black. It was creepy, but also hilarious at the same time.
It was cool because it's a sand-based island, so there's no like soil nutrients for the trees. So the way they get their nutrients is by killing the birds.
Yes.
But there's also like thousands of birds in the trees. So they're also doing like kind of fine, and they need the trees, but then also the trees need to kill them to survive. It was super weird.
And that's been Nature Corner with Mike and Kelly.
I'm very excited. I've been told here there's far fewer things that can kill me.
Yes, we were advertised, New Zealand was advertised to us by someone at the Melbourne show as the more luscious version with less scary / less deadly animals and cuter accents version of Australia.
So far, a great advertising.
Everything's been great. So Nico appears. I'm imagining all of these shearwaters are around him going, boo. He is here in this graveyard, and he is watching grave diggers living up to their name, and he's wearing a black cloak, and he has a big Walmart bag by his feet. Weird that Walmart got the name brand mention here. He asks if it's deep enough yet, and the same ghost from before says almost, but this ghost also adds that it's unnecessary because Nico has him for guidance, which was confusing to me at the time and then made sense in a couple of paragraphs. Nico yells that he wants a second opinion, and he snaps his fingers, and the two diggers stop, and it turns out that these grave diggers were actually skeletons in ragged clothes. Nico dismisses them, and they collapse into a pile of bones, which is quite the exit to make. He thanks them, and that makes the ghost angry. He makes some sort of snide comment about it. I really dislike this ghost so much. I can't wait to learn who he is so that I can properly smack talk him, because I really don't like this guy.
If anybody is telling you not to get a second opinion, I would say don't trust that person.
Or if anyone is telling you not to thank people.
Yeah, that too.
Nico pulls out a 12-pack of Coke out of the Walmart bag, but rather than drink it, he pours it into the grave. And then he says, "Let the dead taste again. Let them rise and take this offering. Let them remember." And I wrote, my guy, this is Coca-Cola. Come on. We're not talking about Bundaberg ginger beer here. So he drops the rest of the Cokes in. He pulls out a Happy Meal bag, and I thought, oh, okay. The chapter title. I hadn't pegged this as how that would be revealed. He dumps in the fries and the burger into the grave, and the ghost has some other smarmy comment this time about how back in his day, they used animal blood, which worked well enough. I don't know. I really don't like this ghost at all. So Nico says that he wants to treat them with respect, and I'm wondering how giving them Coca-Cola and a bunch of Happy Meals is respect.
As an offering instead of animal blood, seems nice.
I guess, or I don't know, at least give them like Big Macs or Quarter Pounders with cheese or whatever metric version of the Quarter Pounder with cheese you guys have down here.
You got to remember, too, he's a kid. The epitome of great food is Happy Meals and Coca-Cola.
Yeah, but you do it for the toy, not the food. Now, speaking of the toy, the ghost asks, can he at least keep the toy? And Nico says, be silent. So Nico puts another 12-pack of soda and 3 more Happy Meals into the grave and starts chanting in ancient Greek. Narrator Percy then says, quote, "I only caught some of the words, a lot about the dead and memories and returning from the grave. Real happy stuff," which is just such a New York turn of phrase. I really love it. New Yorker true and true. The liquid in the grave then starts to bubble and to rise, and then dozens of bluish humanoid figures appear throughout the cemetery. At first I thought they were coming up through this, but they are around the cemetery. And the ghost companion is worried that Nico summoned too many and that he doesn't know his own strength. And Nico unconvincingly says that he has it under control, but Percy can hear in his voice that he's not feeling so sure about it. Nico draws his sword, which has a short blade made of black metal. It's not bronze, but Percy isn't sure what it is. He guesses that it might be iron, which makes me feel like it's not iron. But I don't know what it is. I don't know metals well enough to know what a black metal could be. My only thought was something like obsidian, but I don't think that counts as metal. I think that's a rock. So I have no idea what this could be.
I know what it is.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I feel like I only know obsidian because that might have been something that you could have in Runescape, the video game I played in middle school. I feel like that was the strongest one, but I'm not positive. Anyway, the crowd of bluish figures retreat at the sight of it, so we at least know that it's scary. Nico orders them to approach the bubbling grave one at a time, and one comes up and drinks from it and then eats some fries from it, and then Percy can see this figure more clearly. It's a teenager in Greek armor with curly hair, green eyes, and a seashell clasp on his cloak. Nico asks this person who they are, and the teen replies that he is Theseus. Now, I would love to talk to Dr. Moya more about the actual Theseus story, because the only Theseus story that I know is from Hades the video game, where Theseus is great. We've talked about him on the pod, but he's just a huge jerk, and he talks a lot of trash, and he's just the most perfectly hateable character. Like, he is designed to make you hate him, and it is perfect gaming character design because he is so infinitely hateable. Love him. Honestly, I think my favorite character in the game because of how much I despise him. He is crafted so, he is just the most pompous jerk ever. And every time he's on the screen, you're like, oh, I want to kill this guy so bad. And that's the point, because he's one of the boss battles. And then you get to kill him. And then when you defeat him, you feel so happy because you hate this dude so much. It's great. Very different Theseus we get here in the book. He seems like a nice guy, which was very strange for me to experience as a big-time Theseus hater, since I think I've cleared Hades like 150 plus times. So 150 times I've very angrily been like, I gotta kill this dude. And then I get very happy when I do. Narrator Percy then says, no way, I thought. This couldn't be the, in italics, Theseus. He was just a kid. I'd grown up hearing stories about him fighting the Minotaur and stuff, but I'd always pictured him as this huge buff guy, which is exactly what he is in Hades, a video game. He is ripped. The ghost I was looking at wasn't strong or tall, and he wasn't any older than I was. So that makes me want to know what the real myth is about. Was he a teenager whenever he went into the labyrinth and all that? I have no idea.
Well, all the demigods are very young, and we learned that most of them don't live very long. So it makes sense that this famous demigod was also rather young.
Yeah, that would definitely make sense. Nico asks him how he can get Bianca back. Theseus looks spooked and warns him not to try it because it's madness. But then Nico says, madness? This is Sparta! And kicks him into the bubbling grave. No, he doesn't do that. Nico demands that he tells him. Theseus explains that his stepfather threw himself into the sea because he thought Theseus died in the labyrinth. And Theseus tried to bring him back from the dead, but was unsuccessful in doing so. You have something to add? Or okay. Nico's ghost companion nudges him to ask.
Well,
okay. You sat up and moved your microphone close to your mouth. The universal sign for, hello, I would like to say something, please.
You said the Theseus. You mean Theseus?
Yes, I do. I do indeed. I do
Went
indeed.
back for that one.
Worth
nice.
it. Nico's ghost companion nudges him to ask about the soul exchange, and Theseus is fixated on the ghost's voice, saying that he recognizes it. And this is definitely something where if I knew something about the actual Theseus story, I feel like I would have a clue as to who the ghost is, but because I don't, which is fine, but maybe some big Greek stands out there are like, oh yeah, dude, I totally know who this is. Whoosh, way over my head. Nico asks Theseus if his quest into the labyrinth will bring her back, and Theseus says that the only thing that helped him through the labyrinth was the love of a mortal girl. He notes that the string was only part of the answer, and he says it was the princess who guided him. I know the string is Ariadne's string. I don't think she was a princess, though. Maybe she is the same person. Maybe there's a different princess. This is very much in the I'm sure I'll learn about it later category, but they're talking in vague semi-sentences that I could maybe kind of understand, but not enough. So the companion ghost tells Nico that this is all unnecessary. He will guide him through, and he again implores Nico to ask Theseus about the soul exchange. Nico asks if a soul for a soul truly works. Theseus hesitates, and he begins to confirm, but he tries to immediately warn against it, and the ghost orders Theseus to simply answer the question. The other ghosts begin to stir. Nico yells that he wants to see his sister. Theseus says he is coming. He has sensed your summons. He comes. Nico asks who, and Theseus says he comes to find the source of this power. You must release us. And I don't know who this is. maybe this is the Lord of Time who was mentioned earlier, but I still feel like that's Kronos. I don't know who scary evil person is, and you can't tell me. Narrator Percy says that the water in the fountain begins to hum with power and it starts to tremble. And then Percy realizes that the entire cabin is shaking. The noise gets louder. The image of this vision glows too brightly, and Percy shouts for the call to end. But it doesn't exactly work because the fountain begins to crack, and then purple light throws ghostly shadows onto the walls as if the specters are trying to escape into the cabin. So Percy just instinctively uncaps Riptide and then slashes at the fountain, and it breaks into two pieces. Water gets everywhere. The fountain then falls and smashes into even more pieces, and then Percy just slumps to the ground and shivers based on what he saw. And I don't know if what he revealed to us was the full story, and that in and of itself was scary enough, or if it's one of those like Percy saw something scarier but didn't even give us the full picture as the narrator sort of deals.
Well, or usually when these dreams or calls or something happens, you're safely away from it. Even if it feels very real, you're safely away from it. And it felt like it was coming out of the fountain. It was coming into his life, which I can imagine is a pretty scary moment. And also it's a whole bunch of the dead or the undead like swirling around. And I imagine it's a very intense moment. That would scare me. Tyson just sleeps through the whole thing, but
power to Tyson.
Yeah,
we
good
all
sleeper.
Aspire to be as deep of a sleeper as Tyson.
You're pretty close, but
I am close. I am a pretty deep sleeper. I appreciate it. Now, the next morning, Tyson finds Percy there, still staring at the fountain rubble, clearly didn't get good night's sleep. Later that morning, the quest group meets outside of Zeus's fist. Percy's bag is packed. He's got a thermos full of nectar, a bag of ambrosia, a bedroll, rope, extra clothes, Zeus's power bolt, just kidding, flashlights, and a bunch of extra batteries. And I am very excited that Percy, for once, has brought a well-packed backpack onto the quest. I guess the only other time this happened is when Hermes packed his bag for him. So the fact that Percy did his own packing and did a good job makes me very happy.
he's learning at least.
He is learning. Just like me, I used to be a very bad packer. I'm a much better packer, mainly in that I do it more than 30 minutes before I need to leave for the airport.
That certainly helps when packing.
Growth. Now, Percy is also bringing Riptide in his pocket and his Tyson Shield wristwatch. Juniper and Grover are not fully with the group. Juniper is crying, but she's trying to keep it together. And at this point, I was thinking, maybe I shouldn't be so suspicious of her, but I don't know. She's fussing with Grover's clothes, including his Rasta cap, which I really hoped was no longer canonically a Rasta cap, but it still is. And he's in his human disguise because they're unsure of what lies ahead. So he's got his fake feet and all that going on. Chiron, Quintus, and Mrs. O'Leary are there, as well as a bunch of other campers to wish them goodbye. But it's not your typical, normal, happy send-off because there's a lot of commotion going around. Beckendorf and all of his cabin mates are beginning to build defenses around the entrance/exit in Zeus's fist. So it's not necessarily a cool scene because they are worried about what could happen here.
They're preparing for the chance that something could come out of the labyrinth that way.
Right. And that's not what you want to have to prepare for, just in case the most evil being comes through and tries to fight us. Annabeth is doing a final check on her bag when Percy and Tyson approach. She tells Percy that he looks terrible, which is a thing that no one should ever do. I hate this so much. You know how when you feel really bad because you didn't get a lot of sleep and then someone says, "You look rough," and that makes you feel so much better? I hate that. I hate that so much. I'm such an anti-proponent of people saying, "Oh, you look really tired." Yeah, I know. I am tired. That's why I look tired. Hate it.
I don't mind it as much as you do. As long as it's said by the right person in the right context. If it's meant as a show of concern,
right,
then
I feel like family members and significant others can do it. Not my friend. I'm thinking of one friend of mine in high school who used to say it. And he would be like, "Wow, Mike, you look really tired." Yes, because I was up late doing the homework. Unnamed friend who I'm not going to put on blast on the podcast because I like him a lot. So Annabeth says that Percy looks terrible. Tyson in response says, quote, "He killed the water fountain last night."
Nice.
Stellar. Annabeth is confused. Percy wants to explain, but enter Chiron, who wants to make sure that this explanation happens later down the road. He needs this plot to be in a particular order, and Percy can't reveal exactly what happened just yet. Shout out to Chiron, always there for the plot. Now, Percy can tell that Chiron is trying to sound a bit more positive about them being ready to go, but Percy can tell that it's not 100% sincere. Percy doesn't want to scare him further, but he asks for a favor while he's gone. Chiron agrees, so Percy takes him aside so it's just them solo talking. And Percy tells Chiron about his dream, about Luke and Kronos. Chiron says that he's worried because against his father Kronos, they don't stand a chance. And narrator Percy picks up on the very distinct wording of his father Kronos, saying Chiron rarely called Kronos his father. I mean, we all knew it was true. Everybody in the Greek world, god, monster, or titan, was related to one another somehow, but it wasn't exactly something Chiron liked to brag about. Oh, my dad is the all-powerful evil titan lord who wants to destroy Western civilization. I want to be just like him when I grow up. What a great description. What a great description.
Well, of course, Chiron mentioned it as part of the plot because Chiron's always on the plot. And he wants to make sure that you remember this thing that we learned in the last book.
Hey, did you forget what happened in book 1? Or did you somehow skip books 1 through 3? Hello. Yeah, stepping in, helping out the reader. Percy asks Chiron if he knows what they meant by the bargain. And I'm very excited. I love when Percy asks the questions that I've asked a couple lines up in my notes. Chiron says that he's not sure, but his instinct is that they want to make a deal with Daedalus, which is very interesting. He says that if he is alive and he has his wits about him, Kronos has a chance to bend him to his liking since he can do that to anyone. And Percy clarifies, not everyone, citing book 1, Percy being able to hold up against him. What a supreme brag from Percy to say the evil Titan Lord could not get me. And Chiron agrees with this awesome brag. He gives him a little bit of a smile, but then he gets serious with Percy, saying that he fears Kronos might be after Daedalus for another reason. He calls back to when Luke said that they were going to make Kronos a new body, worthy of the forges of Hephaestus. And Chiron says, indeed, Daedalus was the world's greatest inventor. He created the labyrinth, but much more. Automatons, thinking machines. What if Kronos wishes Daedalus to make him a new form? And now I'm really worried, not only at the potential of Kronos coming back, but Kronos coming back as like a giant evil robot? Oh, let me just get the heck out of here. That sounds awful. Narrator Percy agrees with me, saying that was a real pleasant thought. And honestly, all I can think of at this point in time is the giant mechanical spider from Wild Wild West starring Will Smith. Imagine if that was Kronos. I mean, there is a bit of a reason. We saw Hephaestus's mechanical spider type things in book 1, so maybe giant evil spider. I don't know. That's all I can think of.
I'm trying to think of like other pop culture giant robots that you could
There's the Iron Giant, but he was all nice and stuff.
Okay, mean robots. I can only think of like Godzilla and King Kong, which are robots.
Yeah, you got Megatron from Transformers. He's a big evil robot.
Okay, could be Megatron then.
Yeah, hey, that could be on brand. Percy says that they have to get to Daedalus to make sure that he doesn't do that. Chiron says that he's also worried about the whole one last soul to join their cause business. And Percy stays silent, but he begins to feel guilty, as he should, about not revealing the whole Nico situation to Chiron. And I really just want Percy to tell Chiron because I feel like Chiron could help here, and it's very frustrating.
Well, he says the reason he doesn't tell him is because he thinks Chiron can't do anything about it anyway.
Yeah, but at least then Chiron would know. It's one of those things where I get Percy's explanation of he is afraid that Chiron will have to tell other people, blah, blah, blah. But I just feel like if the true worst case scenario is Chiron can't do anything, what about the small chance that Chiron could do something or at least give Percy advice about how to handle the situation?
I agreed with you at because you've had this gripe as long as he's been keeping this secret. And I agreed with you initially, but I'm starting to see Percy's side on this because Chiron's bosses are the gods, right? And so if he's told this information and he has to share it, there are many gods who would want to kill Nico or bring up the whole pact again about Hades. So I kind of see why, like saving Chiron from being in that awkward middle spot of not having to, rat on him.
Maybe there needs to be some sort of either temporary thing or a different person at Camp Half-Blood where they can have like patient-client confidentiality.
Like a therapist.
Right. Where you can tell like, hey, I'm going to say this. You can't tell the gods and stuff. Let me just vibe check something real quick. Nico's dad is Hades. Should we be worried? Can I keep this a secret? Percy is worried that Kronos knows about Nico, but he internally doubles down on wanting to keep it secret and handle this himself. Percy does tell Chiron what Juniper told him about Quintus, and Chiron says that it doesn't surprise him, but that surprises Percy. Chiron explains that when Quintus showed up to camp offering his services, he was a bit suspicious, as he should be. Percy very logically asks why Chiron let him in then, and Chiron goes full Dumbledore and says, quote, because sometimes it is better to have someone you mistrust close to you so that you can keep an eye on him. He may be just what he says, a half-blood in search of a home. Certainly he has done nothing openly that would make me question his loyalty, but believe me, I will keep an eye, and before he can finish his sentence, Annabeth interrupts to ask Percy if he's ready to go, and Annabeth, the student, has become the master, not letting Chiron reveal too much of the plot. Percy confirms, and then he feels the ice whistle in his pocket. He looks to Quintus, who gives him a wave of goodbye, and Percy thinks to Luke, saying, our spies report success, and how they knew about the quest once it was put into motion. But I just feel like they're being too heavy-handed with Quintus for it to be Quintus, but I don't know that I'm ready to go all in on Juniper. But it's hard because she did mention liking Luke, and she had her reasons for not telling people about the cave because she didn't think the cave was important. Is that entering doth protest too much territory? Am I overthinking it? Am I underthinking it? Am I exactly correctly thinking it? I don't like Juniper. I really don't. And maybe she's just a perfectly fine nymph, but I don't know. Chiron tells Percy to take care, and he wishes him good hunting. Percy wishes him the same, and then he heads over to the rock by Grover and Tyson, and he stares at the crack in the rocks. And Grover says, well, goodbye, sunshine. And Tyson says, hello, rocks.
Nice.
Narrator Percy then says, and together, the four of us descended into darkness. And that is going to hit so hard when that's an episode of the TV show. I am very excited for it. And that is the end of chapter 5, and that is the end of this portion of the live show as well as the episode of the Newest Olympian, but both at the live show and on the podcast after the fact, we will be doing a Q&A in Act 2. But for now, everyone, give it up to Kelly for being a wonderful guest here for TNO. See you all in a little bit. Hello and welcome to the Admiral of the Labyrinth Texas edition. Still Houston, Texas edition, though I was in Dallas yesterday and earlier today celebrating my niece Aurora's 6th birthday. It was as adorable as it sounds. We played with Legos all day. Couldn't ask for a better time. Anyway, let's talk about updates for the podcast that you're listening to, The Newest Olympian. First off, did you know there's a video version of this episode? That is right. Not only could you listen to this episode, but you can also watch this episode if you go to the Newest Olympian YouTube channel. Just search for the Newest Olympian on YouTube. I believe our handle is @Newest Olympian, so you can go to like youtube.com/@Newest Olympian. But if you just search for the Newest Olympian, we'll show up, and so will the video version of this episode. It is completely uncut, so if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to attend a live show or listen to a completely unedited episode of the Newest Olympian, and you'll gain a huge appreciation for me and Sherry, you can go and check out that video. It was fun, just a single camera setup, so I put it up on the YouTube, not necessarily as robust as our multicam live shows, which are available at thenewestolympian.com/merch. Now to address some things that came up in this episode. First, we reference an email that Kelly sent to her grandparents, and I found a copy of the email. Here's what it is. Sent Wednesday, June 2nd, 1999 at 2:33 p.m. to Mom. Subject, an emergency, all lowercase. Dear Graham and Gramps, we have a emergency. We need you to go to McDonald's, space. We need some more tiny Beanie Babies. Beanie spelled wrong, babies spelled wrong. Please help us get some more tiny beanies. Again, spelled wrong. Love, Kelly. Perfection. Now, speaking of Kelly-related silliness, Kelly with an I came back in this chapter, and I had no reaction to her return. We didn't know she was coming back, and in earlier episodes of TNO, I wondered, is Kelly with an I going to make a return? And she did, and I had no reaction. I definitely should have noted that. Honestly, I was so enraptured by the chapter, I forgot that her coming back was a surprise. Other thing, later on in the Q&A, I think I will make a joke where I call Christchurch. That is because at some point in the live show, I reference that the abbreviation for Christchurch is CHCH, and I thought that that was very cool. But I think it's either in the Potterless portion or something that got edited out. Regardless, if you're wondering why I say ch and some people laugh, it's because it was a joke I made earlier in the show. Now, speaking of live shows and stuff like that, I've talked about the San Francisco show that will be happening on February 23rd, and tickets are live at thenewsolympian.com/live. There also might be a San Diego show happening on February 20th. I'm still waiting to hear back from the venue, but if you live in or near San Diego, you might want to just pencil that one in. And I'm also trying to make Los Angeles happen as well in between the 20th and the 23rd, doing a little bit of a California, little road trip situation going on. So I'm doing my best to make those shows happen. San Francisco is confirmed. San Diego is very close to confirmed, and LA, we're putting out some feelers. So doing my best, California. And before I wrap up here, I have a separate ad for this episode, not just the locally inserted stuff, because this sponsor for today's episode can be appreciated by everyone internationally. So I wanted to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Plant Hero. Look, we all can't be from the Demeter cabin. We all don't know how to keep plants alive. And if you are like my plants, you hate being alive despite all of the wonderful things that I do for you. Maybe you need a little bit of extra help. Maybe you need some help from Plant Hero. Plant Hero provides one-to-one personalized help from a team of plant experts to get your plants into great health. They give you expert advice tailored to your specific concerns based on what you tell them in a call. You either set up a 15-minute or 30-minute call, depending on if it's one plant or a bunch of plants. And over the course of this call, this specialist will come up with recommendations. They will take different analyses of what's going on with your plant, whether it's stress or malnourishment or some sort of pest damage. They will figure out exactly what's going on. And then they will send you a summary of your diagnosis via email, so you don't have to memorize anything. And they would also include any product recommendations or any sort of action plan for what you should do with your next steps. Some heroes save the world, like Percy. Other heroes keep your plants alive. And if you go to planthero.app, that's planthero.app, and you use the code TNO at checkout, you'll get 15% off. Win-win. So go to planthero.app, use the code TNO, get 15% off at checkout, and let them help you keep your plants alive. And with that being said, now you will hear some ads. Some of them will be read by me, others of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Laos, don't be surprised if you hear Laos-specific ads. And once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of the newest Olympian. This first one is just an email from Ginger with kiwi food to try. Many people have suggested this top one, pineapple lumps.
Is that
No idea what it is, but that sounds delightful.
Is that different than the one that somebody told me about at intermission that's pineapple lollies? Same thing? Okay, yeah. All right.
I'm Googling them. Ooh, look how fun they look.
Ooh.
They really do live up to their lumpy name. They really look like pineapple lumps. Okay, we can get them at Countdown. Pineapple lumps. They're just pineapples covered in chocolate? Great.
Ooh.
You should freeze them.
Freeze them. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
Yes.
Amazing. Don't buy budget. Okay. This is great. I feel like every live show now, I should book like an extra show in every city, and it's just like, let's talk about food for an hour and a half, and then let's come back tomorrow and do a live show. Okay. Amazing. Cool. So pineapple lumps, lolly cake. Okay. Anzac biscuits. Okay, more response. Jaffas, which I'm aware of. It's like Jaffa cakes, like chocolate orange, yeah? No, different. Okay, what are Jaffas?
They're like a little round lolly.
A little round?
It's like orange on the outside and it's chocolate on the
Okay, so still chocolate orange, but not like Jaffa cakes in Britain where they're cookies. Got it. And then L and P? Okay, what is L and P? A fizzy drink.
Fun.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay, cool, great, awesome.
We're also like basically driving for the next week and a half. So
Yeah.
we need some road
We need
snacks.
lots of road snacks, so this is
Yeah.
great. Okay, so this question is from, is it Andrea or Andrea? Andrea, great. If I could be on a committee for something, I feel like Andrea and Andrea need to be spelled differently. Or like one needs to get an accent above a letter. Like we got to commit because I never know. And I've had lots of patrons with the Andrea/Andrea name. And every time I record both and then send them a message like, which one are you? Anyway, Andrea asks, hi, Mike and Kelly. Who are you most excited to see in the new Percy Jackson show? And why is it Jason Mantzoukas as Mr. D?
Yes.
Non-jokingly, that is who I'm most
That
excited
is,
to see.
yes.
Because I feel like I had an idea for who could be the casting of that. And then when they revealed the casting, I was like, oh, that's why people are paid to be casting directors. Because that is the only correct answer for Mr. D.
That's also the only one that I know. I haven't been following who they've really picked, not for the adult actors. I know who
You
they
did
picked
know
for
that Lin-Manuel is going to be Hermes.
Oh, I did know that.
which you
It's
were happy
impossible
about.
to avoid that one too.
Yeah.
But I'm mostly avoiding it because I want to be surprised by who's
Yeah.
in it. Sometimes they pop up and I know. Those are the two that I do know. Probably because those are also the most famous, and that's why they've like infiltrated my
Sure.
timeline,
Yeah.
regardless of my trying to keep them out.
Yeah. I'm also very excited to see the actress Leah who is playing Annabeth, because I'm very excited for her to be very good and just to prove all of the racist people wrong. I'm
Yes.
very
Yeah.
excited for that because she genuinely seems like she's going to be fantastic in the role.
I'm excited for the young trio because I
Yeah.
think they were casted with care, and I'm excited to see what they're like.
Yeah, I'm super stoked. This next one is from Alfie. Alfie says, my name's Alfie, and I'm 12, and I'm asking you if you have any tips for anyone wanting to start a podcast. Also, buy pineapple lumps. You will not regret it. So,
That's 2 votes for pineapple lumps.
my general advice for starting a podcast is, first and foremost, you need a good idea, and you need to try to think about what is going to make your show different than another show, or at least just the big thing is, why will people listen to your show? And then the sub question is like, why are they listening to your show versus a different show? So you just kind of have to think about the core of the show and what makes it unique, because for all of my shows, they're in very popular categories for the most part. Like there's a million Harry Potter podcasts, but at the time I didn't know of any shows that were about someone who hadn't read them before. When we made Horse, basketball show, lots of basketball podcasts, but we didn't know of any shows that were trying to specifically teach people that anybody can follow basketball. So it had a unique spin on it. So once you have that idea, that kind of sets you apart. Think of a way to describe it in one sentence, because when people ask you what your podcast is, if your sentence starts with, well, they're not going to listen to your podcast. So come up with like a good one sentence thing to say. And then when you are crafting your first episode, really put a lot of work into it and think a lot about it. When I made new shows, we made episode 1 multiple times. I think we did episode 1 of Horse like 3 times, and lots of revisions for episode 1 of Modern Muckraker and of Meddling Adults. Like all these things take a lot of time. So really give that a lot of thought and just think about every particular person who could be in your audience and make sure the show is entertaining for all of them. For the newest Olympian, I had to make sure that the show works for people who've never read the books before and people who have read them a lot. And then that's going to cover every Percy Jackson fan. With Horse, we had to make sure that it appealed to people who have no idea what basketball is and people who are big basketball super fans and want like a lighthearted show. So trying to think about all of the potential audiences and then send episode 1 to a bunch of people, podcasting people you know, your mom, like anyone that could listen, send it, get that feedback, give it some thought, and then refine it, and you can refine it as you go. That would be my biggest thing for starting a show.
Yeah.
A follow-up from Alfie, me again, my friend's here, and he wants to know your favorite Percy Jackson book so far and why. I've really enjoyed all of them. I think I enjoyed 3 the most so far. I feel like I'm going to like 4 more than 3 just based on how it's been going, but I would say number 3 so far. I did really enjoy 1, but 3 was just, it was so good. I feel like 3, you can see Uncle Rick like figuring it out and putting it together, and it really starts to go from like little stories into like big picture arc, and I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. I think this was one of your intro questions for me a while ago when we did a live show, and I said it was number 4 as well. And now that you're in the Labyrinth, because you've read just like the beginning of 6, I can tell you why. It's because the imagery of the Labyrinth is so vibrant, and I love it. And they describe it in so much detail that like I look up from reading the book in broad daylight and I feel like I'm blinking my eyes like I've just come out of darkness, even though I've been in light. It's just like they're so good at the imagery of the Labyrinth that I love it.
I feel like that quote should be on the back of the book when people are hyping up the book. That's a really good one. So this next question comes from George. Hey, I'm Mike and Kelly. So glad TNO came across my radar when it started. The show has kept us well entertained for the last year. You clearly travel a lot for your work, and I'd love to know any insider pro tips you have for adjusting to new places or other facets of travel. Not the newest Olympian, George. P.S. As far as food is concerned, Lamingtons? I've heard. Didn't we eat one of the cake? It's like a cake type
cake
thing.
Yeah.
We ordered it at a breakfast place, and we were like, "This is dessert."
Yeah, we thought
Marmite.
It was
I've not had Marmite, but I've had Vegemite, so I'll have to have. They have Marmite better? No. Okay. There's Marmite in the place we're staying, so I can try some of that to compare and contrast. Pavlova, which we've heard much hyped in here.
We've heard much hype and much contested as to who invented it.
Oh, and maybe a crate. It is Crate Day after all? What is Crate Day?
Drink a whole crate of beer.
Drink a whole crate of beer. All right. Wow. Well, don't know if I'll be doing that, but good to know. Some of the flavors of ice cream available from corner dairies and such may also surprise you.
Okay.
All right. Good to know. A lot of people had ice cream related things. So traveling a lot for work, pro tips for adjusting to new places. George, you mean like living in new places or just like short-term travel? Short-term. Cool. I would say that the key strategy for short-term stuff that Kelly and I've run into is kind of like look up briefly stuff that you want to do in the city, but don't overfill your plate because finding stuff in between, I think, is very fun. You're holding back a smile.
I'm holding back a smile because I usually plan our travel. Mike shows up and he's like, wow, we're doing such amazing things just spontaneously. And I'm like, I have planned all of this.
I think that what we usually do is we have our big benchmark things and we don't try to overfill.
Yes. So what we'll do is we'll talk about the big things we want to do, like big hikes we want to do, big museums we want to go to, like a garden that we really want to go to, things that are like crucial when we're in a city that we want to do. We usually try to just put like 1 or 2 of those on the schedule for a day. And then what I'll do is I become really familiar with the map of a place before we go there. And I'll just start starring little things around and just like have little ideas of like, oh, this could be fun. This could be nice. This has great reviews. And then as we're walking around, I feel like I already know where I am because I've got the map in my head. And I'm like, oh, I know there's this place over here and we've got a couple hours. Let's go check out this museum. Like, oh, we're near this garden. No, I've heard about this. And they've got this species of rose we've never seen. Let's go. So I think you and I travel as a good mixture of planned and spontaneity. Yeah, I think one of the big things is we've traveled in ways where we try to do everything. There is a list of the top 10 things you must do in a city, and it's exhausting to travel that way, especially long term. And so really just realizing you can't do it all and then picking the big things you want to do and not stressing about not seeing it all. It's impossible to see it all. And it's more fun to get a vibe of a place than to just check off a list, I think.
Right. And we've kind of done that here with Christchurch just by like kind of going around, eating, running errands. Like it's felt more
Yesterday,
homey.
our task was I needed hiking poles and we saw lots of things in between. It was because we went really far, not really far. We walked like 50 minutes north. And during that walk, we stopped by a lot of places and saw
swung by a park, swung by this thing that people told us to do, got food at Riverside, all kind of stuff like that. The other thing I would say for my area of expertise, since Kelly's is clearly more in traveling, find whatever sleeping position works for you on various modes of travel. Whether you're a tray table sleeper on a plane or like against the window sleeper on a train, like really trying to maximize that is good so that if you're sleeping during the transit parts, you're like ready to go during the active parts.
I haven't mastered
Little
that.
naps here and there can go a long way.
Or really acquire a taste for coffee. One of the other.
Okay, so this question is from Alexa. My questions are to Mike: which series, Harry or Percy Jackson, do you wish you had read as a kid / would have had the biggest impact on your childhood? I'm glad I read neither. I feel like, though, if I was to pick one about impact on childhood, I feel like Percy, because Percy is just a really good friend and is a really nice, considerate person. Cannot say the same about Harry Potter. And I feel like that would have been more impactful of like, oh, seeing the way that he approaches awkward conversations or dealing with friends going through hard times. Like, I think that's actually really inspiring. It's also very funny, so it could have informed some of my trash talk and stuff in my various sporting endeavors. If you were demigods, which would be your godly parent? I feel like we've answered that one before, or at least via quiz. We both got Poseidon, but you feel more Athena-y.
Yeah.
And did you pick Little Andromeda Theater to do your live show because of the Greek reference? I did not. What's?
Uh-oh.
Oh, is it later in the books? Then I won't say anything.
No, I don't know.
Okay. I don't know what it is, but I picked it because they replied to my email. And they were very nice, and everyone has proven to be very nice, and it just seemed like the best fit for the show. And yeah, they were just a joy to communicate with, so it seemed like a good spot, and it's been lovely. I've been having a great time. It's a great little theater. So yeah, and that's been really cool. Food recommendations: check out some New Zealand vineyards and Bluff oysters. Ooh, okay. All right, good murmur. My favorite Kiwi snacks are grain waves, which I think I saw them. They look like sun chips, kind of. But it says chips, or as you Americans say, crisps. We do not say crisps.
That's the British.
That is
say
the
that,
British.
Right?
We say chips and then fries. You definitely need to try some Whitaker's chocolate. It's amazing. Okay. My favorite flavor is the Hokey Pokey milk chocolate. I would have picked that solely based on the name, so that's good. If you're in Auckland/Wellington, gonna be in Auckland, not gonna be in Wellington, much to the demise of every person in the city of Wellington, apparently.
They're very upset
If I had $1 for every person from Wellington who was sad I wasn't doing a Wellington show, I maybe could have convinced one of the Wellington venues to reply to my emails, which was not the case, and it's why we're not doing a show in Wellington. Did anyone travel here from Wellington? Yeah, okay. I'm just waiting. Like, it would.
Did someone say yes?
Right? Did you? Thank you, because I got so many people being like, "Why are you coming to Wellington?" Be like, none of the venues replied to me. It's out of my hands.
Either we're doing a show in a park, or
if you're in Auckland/Wellington, Duck Island ice cream is a must-try. I like the peppermint slice flavor and the butterscotch pecan flavor. Ooh. Thanks for coming to NZ. Okay, good to know. Good stuff. Okay, this one is from Kezia. Cool. Okay. Want to make sure I pronounce it properly. First off, hope you have a great time here in NZ and enjoy all of the Lord of the Rings repeated content. Yes. Sorry, NZ. Sorry, I'll say NZ. In NZ. In NZ. Second, we know you act a lot like Percy, Mike, and Kelly's a lot like Annabeth. So who do you know that acts and thinks a lot like the other main characters, Chiron, Grover, and Tyson? I do see a lot of Stephen Parra in Grover.
Yeah.
Because he's just nice friend, true and true. I don't think as much like scared of things and stuff. But when I think of Grover, I think of a good friend. When I think of Stephen Parra, I think of a good friend. Mm-hmm. So I would say that. I don't know of anyone who like withholds information from me. So I don't know who would be Chiron. But I guess if like we were looking at mentorship stuff, I don't know.
I can think of, I mean, none of you would know them, but I have like a high school teacher that I think would have a very Chiron-esque vibe to him.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any Tyson friends either. Just like big, lovable
very
buds.
Strong buds.
I don't know. I'll have to think on it more. But for sure, I can say Stephen Parra as Grover, I think is how I feel there.
And Mr. Ulrich is obviously Chiron.
And who?
Mr. Ulrich, my high school math
naturally,
teacher.
Who we all know and love. Oh, wow. Okay. First, there's a big, long email from Zoe and Mika. Cool. All right. I want to make sure I say it right. Kia Ora. Some food suggestions. Starburst lollies. Okay. Cheese rolls, known locally as the sushi of the South. Okay. They're the best in the south of Te Waipunamu, the South Island. Okay. In places, oh God, there's these names, guys. I'm just going to sound so bad. In places like Invercargill, which is the most.
Oh.
Okay. That's the most Lord of the Rings sounding name so far. Take them to Invercargill.
I think I read about that one because that's where the guy who invented instant coffee was from. Or it was the guy who claims part of the claim for flat whites was from there. One of those two guys that invented it.
Feels like there's a lot of people trying to fight for who invented food down here. But as long as you try somewhere in the South Island, you'll be sweet. If you go down south from then recommend stopping in Fairley at the Fairley Bakehouse for a pie. Okay. My favorite is the pork belly with applesauce, but all are very good.
That sounds awesome.
Other down south spot to go is Roxburgh in central Otago, which I think will be near. They are known for their Jimmy's pies, but I would say stop at 103 The Store for a cheese roll. That's our anti-store. Classic NZ thing to know someone who knows something. If you talk to Teresa, let her know let her know Zoe and Mika say hi. Hell yeah, baby.
We're going.
Questions. What things have you got planned through NZ other than Lord of the Rings based activities?
They're all Lord of the Rings based.
They're
have downloaded all of the soundtracks to my phone. That's all we're listening to in the car. From here, we're taking like a scenic train ride west, renting a car, and driving basically as far south as we can get, like as far south as like the Doubtful Sound.
Yeah, we're going down to like Franz Josef, doing some hikes.
Yeah,
so
along
the way
we're stopping at a lot of hikes.
Here, I'll just hit the highlights. We're doing Hokitika Gorge, and then look, I'm gonna butcher it all, so you can just get your laughs out in the way. We're doing Franz Josef Glacier Walk. We're doing Roberts Point Track. We're doing Lake Matheson. We're doing some lavender farms in Wanaka. We're gonna be in Wanaka for a little bit.
Ad,
So doing lavender farms. We're doing a climbing thing,
like
where
an
there's
adventure
climbing
like
thing.
Waterfall thing.
We're going to Diamond Lake. We're then going to do stuff in Queenstown. We're going to do a little bit of the Root Burn track, but not like the whole overstay. We're going to do like a day hike on one side and then a day hike on the other side. We're going to do a couple days in Te Anau, is it? Yeah. Okay.
Wait, how? That's the one I want to know the most.
Well, yeah. Tianau.
Tianau.
Okay. We're
I was saying
so
Te'anau, trying to pronounce every single letter. That was too much. Okay.
So yeah, basically lots of hikes, and then we're going to go to Doubtful Sound and like kayak in it and stuff, and then go over to the North Island. But North Island, am I right? So that's what I got. Have you seen or heard of drop bears? I know it's a lie. You won't trick me. But I already fell for it earlier. Okay, so this is for Kelly. Which of the second series books did you enjoy the most? Don't tell me a title, or just say a book number, because I don't even know what the titles are.
That's really hard because the stories have blended so much in my head for the sequel series, but I would say probably the first, just because it was like so much intro and I fell in love with it so quickly, or the 4/5th.
Okay. So you've picked 3 out of the 5 books.
And 2 and 3. I mean, like, why not?
Which of the gods would you most like to meet, and which of the gods' powers would you most like to have?
Ooh.
I would like to have Hermes' power so I can get to places more quickly.
But not his responsibilities. He seems to be doing the most work.
I only want his powers.
Yep.
To meet, I don't know. Poseidon seems like a nice, chill dude. I feel like he could be fun to meet. I also feel like Athena would probably have a good head on her shoulders. Artemis seemed really cool. I think I might pick Artemis. She had a really good vibe. I liked her a lot.
I think I would want Artemis's powers. She seems like a fun, powerful goddess. And I think Hermes is always very helpful when we meet him. So I'd like to meet him.
Okay. All right. I think we're just going to do like one or two more questions and then we got to go. So this one is from Emily. Enjoying the show immensely so far. I recommend Whitaker's chocolate. Any flavor is great, but creamy milk is my personal go-to. Oh, question for Kelly. What was the hardest thing not to spoil for Mike during Potterless?
Potterless wasn't as hard for me to not spoil because I knew the books so well. And I was more excited about him learning about it naturally rather than like accidentally spoiling something. But I was never on the verge of accidentally spoiling something because I knew exactly where he was and exactly what he didn't know. With Percy Jackson, since I just started reading them when Mike did, I can never remember where he is in the series, so I just can't talk about anything because I don't know which things we've learned before and which things we've learned after. So I'm actually in the process of rereading them now to know them a little bit better so I don't spoil something. There are a couple of things I've really, really come close to spoiling with you.
Oh, but you haven't done it yet. Okay, let me do one final question and then we will skadoodle. Okay, so this is from Joshua. It says, hi, Mike and Kelly. Question, do you have a favorite character so far in the Percy Jackson series? And if so, who is it? Cheers, Josh. P.S. Try some Hokey Pokey ice cream and also a hangi? What is that?
It's a Maori traditional food that's cooked in the ground, but do it in the North Island.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Well, they can do one thing good, I guess. Okay, so favorite character in the Percy Jackson series. Do you have one? And if so, who is it?
In the original series? I think my favorite is in the sequel series.
I would say keep it the original because I don't even know like names of people, so I don't want to get spoiled with that.
I do really like Annabeth as a character. I really like her. I think she's got a good head on her shoulders and she keeps Percy in line. And also, I think she's a fun character. I really like her.
I think if I'm going to give a serious answer, I think I'm just going to be basic and pick Percy. I just really like him. He's a good kid. I like his snarkiness, his New York style, and his good friendship. But joking answer, I love George and Martha, and they should be in every book. I miss them dearly. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming out. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out to the show. It was short notice on the announcement, so I really appreciate it. Give it up to Kelly again for being such a lovely guest. And shout out to all the folks here at the Little Andromeda. It was a lovely experience to work with them for organizing things and getting the tickets out there and running the show. Everyone's been so nice and so wonderful. So give them a round of applause for making this happen. This was such a delight. So I very much appreciate you all coming out. This was so fun. I hope to return to CHCHNZ to do another show when I do, hopefully in the future, a proper tour. But this has been great. And this has been such a fun introduction to our stay in New Zealand. I can't think of a better way to start this all off. So thank you again all so much. Kelly will be at the merch table in the back. I'll head there for a little bit too if you want to come by, get some stuff and all that. And until next time when I return to NZ after I've eaten all the delicious food that you've all recommended, until then, I'll pursue you later. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Grugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you love the show, you're all caught up on the show, and you just can't get enough, you should check out our Patreon, where you can get access to loads of bonus content, bonus episodes, bloopers, director's commentary, monthly Q&A live streams. All sorts of good stuff lives at thenewsolympian.com/Patreon. And if you want to rep the show, you can get some merch at thenewsolympian.com/merch. If you want to be part of a larger community, you can join the Patreon, get access to our Discord, but you can also check us out on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We have a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewsolympian. We even have a TikTok account that Sherry runs. It's at Newest Olympian. Lots of good stuff on social media. This show wouldn't be possible without our patrons, and I want to give a shout out to our Ultra God tier patrons: Lotta Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Peter Johnson, The Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Heather McMillan, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Falcon, Joey James, Christopher William Boucher, Caden Max, Sam Reeby, Carly Allen, Riley Kiedis, Mary Kelly, Audra, Mackenzie, Mrs. O'Leary, Aaron Wood, Rodith Kalna, Milo Kim, Fred Cabras, Harlan Christ, CC Reeds 23, Sandkoff, Julia Kendall, Emil Oscar Thomason, Liz Cardigan, Michelle Spurgeon, Zachary Hamilton, Sarah Neal, Ricky, Francesca Pacheco, and John Drielsma. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, tell a friend about the show. That really helps a ton. Reach out to someone directly and say, hey, you love Percy Jackson, or hey, you've been looking for an excuse to read Percy Jackson. There's this podcast. It's very good. The host is very humble. You could also talk about us on social media or leave us a rating and review on whatever podcast app you're using. All these things help, and I really appreciate all of you who have done that or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode where we will be covering Chapter 6 and a little bit of Chapter 7 with Kelly Schubert live in Auckland, New Zealand, the final live show for a little bit of time. But until then, I'll Percy you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. First, an ASMR Mike update from a previous ASMR Mike segment. I said that the bird was a magpie. I've been told by listener B. Forrest, which is a very apt name for a correction here, that bird was actually a tui. So, correction there. Now, for this ASMR segment, there was a time when we were in Tianao and it was raining so hard that I couldn't believe how hard it was raining. So I took out my phone and recorded it. Here is some of the heaviest rain I've ever heard in my life. Thank you for listening.